morning. Good morning, everyone. You are listening to the new WCEG Network on WCEG Talk Radio.com. Or you can watch us live on your smart TV, YouTube, TWR, Facebook, and LinkedIn at WCEG Network. I am attorney Melaney LaGrone. I'm going to be your host this morning for Beyond the Border for about the next 45 minutes to an hour. We are the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. We're here to speak life into the community, and our show is all things immigration. Please subscribe free to our YouTube channel, WCEG Network. You can like, follow, connect us on Facebook, Twitter, IG, and LinkedIn. And then, of course, now we have an actual new platform, which is a mobile app. So please feel free to download our mobile app on iOS, Apple, as well as Android. And last but not least, a little disclaimer, of course, the topics and opinions are those of the show hosts and guests and not WCEG Network. And thank you for your continued support. So this morning, I am joined by Miriam Lacroix, and she is an immigration attorney out of New York. Hey, Miriam.
Hi, Melanie. How are you today?
I am fabulous. How are you?
I am doing great. It is not so bad here in New York in terms of weather. I think it's going to get a little rainy, but it's been a pretty good couple days, so I'm smiling.
That's good. That's good. Well, I want to thank you so very much for being my guest today on the show.
Of course.
And as you know, we just talk all things immigration. So, we're going to have like just an open, candid conversation about what's going on in the world today in immigration, and just go from there. So the first thing that I thought about this morning was humanitarian parole, the new program. Yeah. I was wondering, like, how so far is it going? Because I know we've had a couple, clients that have, petitioned for it, and we're kind of just waiting. But for those of you that don't know, President Biden, he implemented this humanitarian parole, kind of like a new kind of humanitarian parole program for any immigrants from Cuba, Venezuela, Haiti, and Nicaragua. And it's an awesome program, I think, on the face, because what it allows for anyone to be able to sponsor someone from one of those countries. Obviously, you have to know the person, be a friend or family member or something like that. But you can sponsor anyone from one of those countries, and they can come to the United States and be able to work and live for 2 years, which I think is an awesome opportunity. I know a few people that so far have come over that, it went pretty fast. Yeah. And then, we have some that are kind of just lingering. So what are you thinking about this new program? I mean, I know he's trying to work with us, but
yeah. I don't know. I'm torn because I think it's an excellent program, especially me being Haitian, my dad having family in Haiti. There was an opportunity for him to bring family that he never, like nieces, people he would have never been able to petition for before. And so I'm really happy about it, but it's the backlog that's already happening in immigration. So they're working on that. And now they've decided to allow 30,000 people per month. So that's at least 30,000 applications per month. It's 4 different countries. I can't imagine how backlogged they have become with this new humanitarian parole program, in addition to the backlog that they've already had. And so, like you said, similar to me, I've had clients that we've submitted the applications back in January, right when it started, maybe a week after it started, and we've heard nothing. But I have heard amazing things from other people whose families are here. And, I see a lot of videos of people saying, thank you, Biden. And, so it works and people are here. It's just taking so long. And it's really hard to tell how long it's actually going to take. When you call USCIS, they're like, just be patient. We don't need anything from you. So I don't know. It's really, I don't know. I feel happy about the program, but I also feel like, a lot of people feel like this is like a dream that they're being sold and that it'll never happen too.
Yeah. And that's what I've been hearing too, because it's like, of course, there's no guarantees, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, oh, okay, well, is this really real type of thing? But just like, you said, I've seen where, people have come over and they're, as you know, social media is all of that. So, they're posting and everything like that. So it seems fabulous. I'm just, I guess I'm concerned just like you are as far as with the backlog of immigration already. So I'm wondering even if they have, let's say, like separate, like people that are adjudicating this, that they're taking away from all the other millions of applications. Who just specifically process these type of applications.
And what I think about too is this was already in place for Ukraine, and I think maybe I can't either Nicaragua or Venezuela. It was in place for them, but I would Venezuela. And so I'm really curious, and I really don't have the answer to this, but what it was like, particularly for Ukraine, did we have the same backlog? Were people coming a lot quicker? Was the vetting the same? I'm just always curious when it's between, brown countries and non-brown countries.
There you go. Exactly. Because it seems like my understanding was Ukraine was like, people were just coming, no big deal, So that whole vetting thing, it's like, are we being, scrutinized and vetted more, than,
than everyone else? And I just can't help but have that come across my mind as I have clients waiting 2.5 months for this to go through, when it's supposed to be quick. It's supposed to be a couple weeks,
Yeah, it's supposed to be really, really quick. I know a young lady who I think I want to say she was in Nicaragua.
Okay.
And she was kind of like a friend of a friend that I found out this through. And I know she did it right immediately when it dropped, basically. And I think my understanding is she did it on her own, but I think for her, like, she was here almost in like 2 weeks or something like that. And then that's another thing too, is, maybe now that, of course, it's now more people are joining the bandwagon and start, putting in their petitions, is that going to affect it as well?
But absolutely.
As always, it's immigration. So we just kind of sit and say, we don't know.
Right. I know, because I feel like clients are always looking for a definitive answer. Like, how long is this going to take? And how are they going to respond to this? And I have to say, well, I have had 2 exact same cases with different outcomes in some situations. So, and then, in terms of timing, some cases move faster than others, and there is no rhyme or reason. We just have to wait. And no one wants to hear that.
Patience, you guys, patience is a virtue. But obviously, once it comes through, I think that's, it's a fabulous opportunity for your friends, your family, and stuff like that. So definitely still do it. Okay. Just, understand, one, get an attorney to do it for you to make sure that it's done correctly. And just understand that you have to have patience. So that leads me into processing times anyways, because that's like the bane of our existence on a regular basis. What are you seeing in New York? Because I know, obviously different, they try not to say that it's different areas are processing different, because basically you kind of are sending the same type of, cases to the same location or lockbox or something like that. But I know, I've been seeing some things where there's people in other states that are getting, things very, very fast versus, us in Georgia, me and little old Georgia is like, we're just going to wait. So what are you seeing in New York? How is it going with processing times?
Oh, it is the same. I mean, we're waiting. Like, specifically for certain cases, I'm noticing too, like waivers. If you need a waiver to get your green card, it's because you have something in your immigration history or maybe some sort of criminal history that's impacted your ability to apply for a green card. And so you need a waiver, or even the way you enter the country, right? It's like a forgiveness, a legal forgiveness to say, you're sorry for whatever it is that you did. But those waivers are taking, in my experience now, over 2 years to be approved. And these are people that have just been patiently waiting. I have a client from Haiti who entered the US many years ago, maybe in the early or probably the late 90s. And her daughter was petitioning for her, and that would normally be a straightforward process, still taking long, of course, but she needed a waiver. And so we started this process back in 2018, and we just filed the waiver last year. And so she's still waiting for her interview. Well, she had an interview, but she's still waiting for the waiver to be approved and then to come in afterwards. So we're talking, 4 or 5 year process, at least for many of our clients. I think you're probably seeing the same thing over in Georgia.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting to say the least, because I remember I checked processing times, and that's the only thing too, everyone that's listening and watching and that follows us, you can go online and check processing times. Like, it's not like something that's a secret. I mean, you literally can like Google, processing times.
Yes.
And you'll be able to see, but before the holidays, so I'm thinking like before like December or something like that, it seemed like regular, like, I-485s, adjustment status was like 20, I think it said like 22 months or something like that. And then we hit January, February, like right after the holidays, and it jumped up to like 35 months or something like that. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, what made that difference in just a couple months?
Yeah.
With these times. And then it's like, I know for me, in my firm, sometimes it gets a little stressful because obviously, in the beginning, when we talk to our clients and everything, we let them know what it is at the time. You know what I'm saying? And let them know, hey, it could change one way or the other, but then having to kind of make that call sometimes and be like, yeah, it's kind of increased a little bit, they're like, but you said, and I'm like, but I said at the time,
right.
And they just don't understand. But I think everyone really has to like think about, like, there are millions of people, like there's hundreds and thousands and plus of immigrants that are trying to migrate here, or who are already here and have already started their process and things like that. So with COVID, obviously, USCIS and the consulates and all that type of stuff, obviously got backlogged because they were laying people off, and they didn't have enough personnel. And then with the whole social distancing and not going to work and closing things and consulates closing and embassies closing and stuff like that, you guys, we are still like we're still dealing with it. So that's why I always say, look, stop waiting. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you waiting for to get your petition in? Like, at this point, just get in line, because you don't know how long it's going to take right now. We have so I love fiance visas, and I what the funniest thing is I don't know if it's like I love or what it is, but I love the stories that my clients tell me on how they met. And so, we were doing a lot of fiance visas, and we were getting them like approved in like a year. Like, we had our last one, she ended up being able to, it was about a little over a year, like just a tad over a year. But she made it here into the US in December before Christmas to be with her honey and all that type of stuff. And it went really, really fast. And now, we have some people that are kind of just, waiting. So now we're looking into almost getting into the,
the fiance petitions that I'm filing are taking at least 12, 13 months. And I was about to ask you, what special sauce do you have to get it down to like around that time? But again,
girl, it's the luck of the draw.
Yeah,
because
I know.
I swear, because you can file two of the same. They could even be going to the same area, and the times will be different, and I really do think it's like, at what point in time somebody picks up the file, you know what I mean, and actually looks at it, even though you get it in at the same time. And so I don't know, but
that makes me to tell people, do it right. Get a lawyer and do it right the first time, because once you get a request for evidence, you are slowing, like what you just said, like when they get a chance to pick up the file, they put the file right down when they're like, oh, we need more information. We can put that.
So imagine they have the stack and it's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, this one we need a request for evidence. We need more evidence. Oh, let's put this under the stack now. Even if you got the evidence to them like the next week, it's now under that big pile.
Yeah.
And I really do think that that's how it goes. And people just have to understand, like, you got to just jump on it right away. Stop thinking about it. Stop, contemplating, oh, I've been here for 5 years. I might as well wait another 5 years. And it's like, okay, no, let's not.
Don't do it. You're gonna, and I think processing times will get better over time. I mean, we're still working through them, and it's going to take us probably another couple years to get through this, if not a little bit more. But if you get yourself, like you said, in line, get in the queue, you're just in a waiting period at that point. Whereas you're not waiting for the line to get even longer and then getting on it. Exactly.
So what do you like to do? What do you think that that you do more of, or maybe that you like to do more of?
Yeah. So there are 2 case types, one that I do a lot of that I love, and one that I'd like to do more of. Marriage-based green cards, like one-step adjustments, are my favorite thing to do, especially now since they're waiving interviews. Yes. I think that that is the most wonderful thing to do. It's like file a really good packet with wonderful bona fides, and all your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, you submit it, it looks good on the papers, and they don't interview you. You just get the green card in the mail.
Yes.
That feels
Girl, so excited. Like I was like so excited when I received some of those emails, like, hey, we just need this real quick. Just kind of send it to us and we're good. Yeah. And I'm like, what?
Wow. So like that is a case that I do pretty often, and I love doing them. And it's similar to your story about like hearing the love stories, how people met, and it warms me, because like that is like my parents' story, very similar. Like my mom is from here. She's from the Bronx, family from the South. And she met my dad working at a department store. She called it Gimbal. Apparently it used to be Macy's or something back in the day. And so seeing their story back in the 80s and how they're together today, like all of these stories remind me of that. Like I even went to my dad's consular interview when I was like, I don't know, 2 weeks old or something. They both had to go. And so that's probably my favorite part of this job, similar to you, is hearing the stories. But what I'd love to do more of are employment-based green cards. And so I've done one for executive, like a bank officer, and working on some for caregivers now. So that's also something that is interesting and important to me, because we're in a point in this country where there are more jobs than people actually taking or looking for in certain fields, of course, not every field, but giving someone the opportunity to take advantage of that here in the US, and an employer who has tried looking for an employee for a certain position and hasn't been able to find one, being able to find one and not being limited by our borders or by someone's legal status, because they could obtain the legal status with that job offer. So those are the things I really enjoy doing in my practice.
And speaking of that, because a lot of times we get the immigrants are taking our jobs. No. And it's like, I think I had somebody on social media, I think it do something to a response to one of like my TikTok videos or something like that, say something like, you should just send them all back because, they're taking our job. And it's like, explain that to everyone. Right. Like what, because we all know, we know that that's not the case. Yeah. And obviously they can't come over and get a position if there is somebody here in the US that can get that position, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a whole process. You can't, as a business, just decide, I want to hire Marsha living in Jamaica for my business and bring them over and they start working. There is a whole process that involves the Department of Labor, that involves, all of, other parts of government, of course, just like USCIS or immigration. So it is not easy. And one of the things that you have to prove when you're going through the Department of Labor process is that there are no qualified US citizens or US residents to take that position. And so no one's job is getting stolen. I can promise you that. And then one thing we should try to think about is who exactly is telling us that? Where is that rhetoric coming from? And is it because they're trying to pit us against each other? And, just like you said in the beginning, this is just my opinion, but I definitely believe that, jobs is a concern of Black and Brown communities, always. And in order to get us to be against immigration and to, be on the side of people who don't want, too much immigration into the country, it's easy to say that our jobs are being stolen from us so that we can then be pit against immigrants coming into the country. And unfortunately, that's really not the case. And there have been studies that have said that actually doesn't happen. No jobs are being stolen. You can still, whatever career field you're in, you can still obtain a job in that field. Because they have to show that they can't find anyone else before they hire you an immigrant in that position.
Right. Exactly. And immigrants really do, they contribute a whole lot to this economy.
Absolutely.
It's not like they're taking from us, they are contributing a whole lot to the economy and helping it grow and it's crazy. So down in the US Virgin Islands, so I have an office down there, and they totally need people to come work. We're really, really, really trying to figure out what is the best way to be able to bring people over to help, in, the hospitality industry, in the construction industry, because they're still, they're still rebuilding, from the hurricane. And two, they're on this massive growth spurt to where, they really, really need help. So it's because we have, two different types of immigration processes. We have the family-based, immigration where, you're dealing with families and things like that. And then you have business immigration. And some firms, do a mix of both. Some firms only concentrate on one, concentrate on the other. And then, of course, we have deportation, which is a whole other animal in and of itself. So, we've been even kind of looking at, okay, is this something that we want to maybe bring more into the firm or, learn more about it so that we could help everyone, down in the USVI, because they really are like employers are what do I need to do? How do I get people here? This is what's going on right now. And so, projects and everything like that are just kind of being halted because, they don't have, people to fill the positions, so. And that's another thing, everyone, is that, just think about that. If projects have to be halted because they don't have anybody, to fill a position, if, let's say in the medical industry, if, they can't treat, if a hospital can't treat a certain, type of patient or whatever, because they don't have a qualified doctor who focuses on that, that's huge.
Yeah. Absolutely. It is a problem that we don't want to have, especially not having enough healthcare providers. And I do know that there are a couple of special categories in immigration where they've decided that this field, that we need more professionals in this field. And I know, what are they called? Physical therapists is one of them, nurses, another one. And sometimes you can, in those fields, when USCIS or Department of Homeland Security decides that there's a gap that needs to be filled, sometimes your process is a little bit shorter because they're looking for people to come in. So that's definitely something to think about, because for fields in construction, we're fast growing communities and are, building homes, building apartment buildings, all of that, we don't want those things just at a halt, in our community. So, those are the benefits of having foreign labor, come into the US. It's a benefit for sure.
Because we don't want to stunt our growth, you guys. Like, we don't want to just, stop, because, then that's really bad for the economy. Okay. But understand this, because I had a situation where, a couple came over from another country because they really do want to stay and they want to invest in the US. And I mean, it was a great story, but, it has to be done right. Like, what I'm saying? Like, you can't just come over and say, hey, even if it's, obviously you're coming with a visa, I'm saying? Like, you're coming, with some sort of, legal status,
right.
Temporary. But, if you want to stay permanent or, get your green card, things like that, with investing in the US, there's still proper steps that you have to take in order for that to work. Otherwise, your heart and your effort and, and what you want to accomplish really is going to just kind of get blocked, and you're going to have to go back.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point.
Definitely consult, right? Consult someone about that, an immigration attorney about that, because it's not just, hey, I'm here. Yeah. I want to give to the US.
That's great. We want to take it and we want you to benefit from it too, but we also want to make sure that you're not kicked out because you didn't do the right things at the right time.
Exactly. So, Miriam, what is on your mind? What have you seen in the news or seen that's kind of like, oh, I want to kind of, talk about this a little bit,
what, and I don't do a whole lot of removal defense as much as I used to. But something that I've been seeing a lot recently has to do with the current administration's bans on asylum, and kind of mirroring our previous administration, kind of bringing back some of those kind of bans, like if you were in a safe third country before you got here, a lot of the things that was said that, our current president said that they didn't agree with, and now they're sort of coming back, and it's concerning for many different reasons. And I don't know, I worry about, and for people listening, and you probably have already talked about this before, but in case they are new listeners or they don't remember, it is completely legal to present yourself at a border or a port of entry, and say, I have fear, I can't return to my home country. That is not illegal. And we have signed human rights things, related to the United Nations and all of that, that says that we can't just return people to danger or to death. Yet our administrations, Democratic or Republican, have put so many restrictions on people's ability to do that. And it's frustrating because I'm like, who's going to say something? Isn't this illegal? Are we not supposed to be doing this? Are we not supposed to be impeding people who have a genuine fear of returning to their home country, and they're coming here for our protection because we're supposed to be better at protecting our, people who are within our borders. So yeah, I keep hearing a lot about it, and it definitely worries me.
Yes. definitely, to piggyback on that, because so seeking asylum. So when you're coming into the United States, okay, obviously you have to travel, okay, and you have to travel, because not every place is on a border, what I'm saying, like Mexico and the US or anything like that. So you have to travel sometimes through different countries, what I'm saying, different states and whatever to get to, your final destination. And, it used to be where, hey, you do all of that and then you come in and it's like, okay, I'm seeking asylum. And you might have chosen, let's say, Georgia or chosen New York because you have some sort of friend or family member there. And so you're trying to get to that location to where they are so you can have some sort of support. Well, they want, so the new President Biden and the administration, they want you to now, in the countries that you basically travel through, you're supposed to seek asylum like there. Like you're supposed to say, I'm seeking asylum there. Now, in removal defense, one thing that I have found in going up in front of, the immigration judges and things like that, they will ask. So they will ask, did you mention that you wanted, asylum in these other countries or this, that, and the other? But it wasn't a situation where you had to stay in that particular country and say, this is where I want asylum or a certain, state or something like that. But now that's what they're saying. Like, before you get here, you got to claim it other places. Yeah. And it's like, well, the focus is, getting to the United States and getting to a state in the United States where I feel comfortable or I have some support or something like that. It's I'm not trying to say, in another country, like, hey, I want asylum. Right. But it's something that everyone does need to know, because this will ultimately help your case. Yeah. So hint, think about, and listen, because just let those words come out your mouth, maybe at each port, each place that you're at, so that, by the time you are, you are here, you can at least say, yeah, I said it, in those other places. But that just doesn't make any sense, because one, who knows about that? Because that's the biggest thing to me in immigration, is like the lack of information. Yeah. So people don't know. We're just talking about everyday people. Yeah. So everyday people don't know the ins and outs of immigration and what you're supposed to do and not supposed to do. Yeah. And then two, how comfortable, I guess, are you going to be, like saying that, like, you don't know what, other areas are going to, how they're going to treat you, or
and what connections they have to the people you're running from. If you're in Central America and you're traveling through Central America, you want to tell officials, like, in another Central American country, that the gangs are after you, because who knows if they're being paid by the same gang to hold you for them to come and get you. So, the burden placed on people who are literally just trying to survive is mind-boggling to me. It's like, and it puts a further stigma on the border. A lot of people are just like, yeah, we need to close up our borders for safety. And absolutely, we need to be safe, number one. But I think people think that undocumented immigrants only come from the border. And that is not at all the case. We hear about the border all the time, and that's a way to get us a little riled up or whatever. But people come to the US in so many ways. They come on a student visa, they come as a visitor, and they just stay. And sometimes that's how they become undocumented in the US. And so, putting these restrictions at the border is just telling people that, the border is a problem. And whereas, I think it's not as much of a problem as we all think it is, because they just put it out there that it is,
And how we always talk, there's always a difference, black and brown. And so, what are the bordering countries, know.
Who's likely to come through the border, right? Like someone who doesn't have the resources to get a different type of visa or family here, right? They might have family, maybe their family doesn't make enough to petition for them because you have to show that someone can sponsor you for those things. You can't come any other way. And so of course you're going to come away whatever the last resort kind of way. Whereas people from Europe and, countries like that, like they sometimes just have ESTA, or a way to come into the US very easily. And so no one thinks about the fact that they overstay as well. They're just not coming through the border.
Exactly. But, that's a whole nother topic.
I know. We have a whole show on racial justice and immigration. I tell you that.
And it's so funny because it's like almost everybody who is on, our show, all the guests on the show, like we all have the same, thoughts in our head, and we're all, express it. And even in you guys, I'm talking about even, white, immigration lawyers, you know what I'm saying? Because they know, like they're in the trenches, like they're doing this with us. So they know the difference, you know what I'm saying? And we talk about that all the time. Like there is definitely that bias, that disparity, that, everything that, we as, let's say, Black people in the US, I'm saying, born and raised, have experienced, it's the same with immigrants, that, but that's one of those, of course, topics that will probably go on in the world for until we die.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately. So let's see. Okay, so asylum has been huge. Whole thing with the whole thing with Title 42 and the whole COVID and all that type of stuff, they're kind of, and I think that's where the whole asylum thing is coming in, where they've kind of migrated that into a different sort of, not, of course, administrations, excuse me, they don't want to sometimes piggyback off of maybe previous administrations if they know something was not, taken, right, or whatever, Democrats, Republicans and things like that, but they'll just kind of change it and make the same doggone thing. Like, what about the public charge rule? Like the public charge rule.
Oh my gosh. Yes. That is such a good example of like, that was wrong. So I'm just going to change it a little bit.
And I'm just going to add some questions on this I-485 application for them to answer that are all public charge.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what that is. Under the Trump administration, he's like, well, we're going to look at the incoming immigrant and see what they have. Can you speak English? Do you have an education? What kind of degrees do you have? It's almost like, not almost, it is like we're trying to qualify people on who is actually worthy of being in this country. And like, if you if you don't already speak English, if you don't already have these credentials, if you don't already have a little bit of money in the bank, like you're not worthy of being here. And that's what that's telling people. And then, if that gets knocked down, and then we get this new green card application that asks very similar questions. And we're like, wait a minute, I thought we weren't doing this. Why are we asking about it?
I know.
Degree.
And it's like, because as we know, immigration changes daily.
Yes.
And we're supposed to be able to keep up with everything. We get this, and then it says, the very first question says, are you subject to the public charge? And for me, I would be like, no. Like,
no.
Like, no. But then why would they have that question on there? It's like everybody is subject to the public charge unless you have like a petition, like a humanitarian type petition, like a VAWA or something like that. And so then, of course, our clients feel like we're like digging more into their lives, because, okay, so so the public charge originally, for you guys if you remember, in the Trump era.
Yes.
Was, just like Miriam said, like, well, do you have a degree, for the immigrants coming over, do you have a degree? Well, how much money do you make? What level of, high school, college, whatever did you go to? All of that type of stuff. And it's almost like, why? Did you have any public assistance, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so they said, okay, the new administration was like, oh yeah, so we're gonna just fix that. There's not this, whatever 20-page document of all these questions that we're going to ask you about, your life and the public charge information, but we're going to stick about, I think, what is it like 5, 6, we're going to add like 5, 6 additional questions onto your I-485, which is your green card application, that ask you the same thing. What's the highest level of education do you have? How much money do you make? How much money do you have in the bank?
Yeah.
And when we present that to, our clients, they're like, why? And I'm like, well, because immigration is asking, and if you want this immigration benefit, you have to fill it out.
Yeah.
And it's like, just like everything else in immigration is like a shrug the shoulder. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's like a parent, because I said so. Like, we do it because they said so, and that's really it.
I think that's the biggest thing I say is like, because it is what it is, and you have to do it. And usually I say, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Immigration is one of those fields, but so now it's like, you have to do it. You have to fill it out. And I haven't yet, knock on wood, had any, I guess negativity, per se, or whatever from USCIS or anything like that about, the answers that have been put on there. But it's definitely something that they're looking at now.
Yeah. And I thought that too. I was thinking, are they going to take this into account now? If I say my client makes zero income, because oftentimes they might make zero income, especially if they're not authorized to work. Maybe their spouse works. And so like, make zero income, and they, have a high school education, or maybe less, and I think there's some other questions about like if they've ever been in an like institutionalized or something like that.
I think something like,
So, like, so it's like,
now we're saying mental health is,
so there's like a lot of things that they're I don't know why they're collecting this information, if they're going to use it against our clients in the future. But, I always say, complete everything truthfully. And oftentimes, as your attorneys, if you have an interview and we're there, we know what to say when an officer has gone too far or is making a big deal out of something they shouldn't be making a big deal out of. So, if you have issues and you're afraid that U.S. government might consider you to be a public charge, because of, I've had petitioners who were on disability and, things like that, and needed joint sponsors, and very concerned about that part of it. And I always say, call an immigration lawyer and have someone look at your case and represent you at an interview to make sure that these officers aren't, because sometimes they're not always lawyers, or usually they're not, and they might not, know not to make a big deal out of something, or why not. And so that's where we come in and we step in and try to protect you from that.
Exactly. And you go to your interviews. So you go to your interviews with your clients.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. And I do too. And I always tell people, I was like, look, I'm a body in a seat. Okay. So I can't help answer the questions for you. You know what I'm saying? But I am there to make sure that the officer does what they're supposed to do and, doesn't do, things that, they're not supposed to do, because they really will take advantage of, of our clients. Like, they really will. And I don't know if it's they don't know any better. Like, some of them, don't know any better. or if some of them are just mean, because I think some of them are just mean and they just don't want you to be here.
Yeah.
Or they just don't care.
Yeah. And, that makes me think of like a concern that I wonder, like I wouldn't have complained about this officer anyway, because he granted, but this officer in New York had been an officer for like probably 20 something years. He's been there forever and I've seen him before. But in one of my last interviews, he literally just held us hostage talking about his life. He mentioned nothing about my client's application and just talked about his own problems for 45 minutes. And 30 minutes in, he was like, oh, by the way, I'm going to approve this. But I'm just chatting. I'm just like, isn't this a waste of time? Don't you have other people waiting for you? Like these officers are so interesting. You can get any kind of officer when you enter USC. You don't know who you're going to get. And it is hilarious when you get someone like that.
Now that is funny. But you know what, though? Maybe, now this might be a good thing. Maybe he really did look at the file prior to, because I feel like I walk into USCIS and I get people that are just picking up the file for the first time. Yeah,
that's true.
And it's like, you do realize their file is this thick.
Yeah.
Like we're only here usually, an hour or whatever max, sometimes, and it's like, like looking at it for the first time, and which true. I guess again makes me wonder of the whole processing times, because it's like you're not even looking at the case until the interview.
Yeah. So what is going on? Like, are you taking that much time to scan it into the system so that the officers at the field offices have, like, I don't know what they're doing, honestly. I can't tell you.
Yeah, I give up. But anywho, that's immigration, you guys, and you know how it goes. So, like I said, we always say immigration is more than filling out forms. Okay. It's more than, I can do it myself, fill out these forms. Even the application of the N-400 for citizenship. Yes, it's pretty basic. Okay. But you still have to answer the questions correctly. And if you don't, you're going to get yourself into trouble. I've had people, of course, in the whole criminal, realm of things, not think twice about some sort of conviction that they might have, or when it was, based off of when they go and file their N-400 application, and they go to the interview and they get arrested, or, or they go to an interview, it gets denied and they can't reapply for 5 years. So I just say that to say, reach out to an immigration attorney. We are here. We don't care if you reach out to us or you reach out to somebody else. But at the end of the day, our overall goal, and that's one thing about this bar, like the immigration attorneys that, our network and things like that, is that we have one overall goal. And the overall goal is to make sure that all of our immigrant clients are, approved, their cases are done properly, any deportation clients, they don't get deported and things like that. So we are all in it to win it, to help each other out. So that's like, I don't care if you come to me, go to Miriam, go to anybody else. It's like, but seek the assistance of an immigration attorney, no matter what, because even the minute thing that you think is no big deal can really be a big deal. And we are able to actually analyze your whole life, your whole situation, and things like that, to make sure that everything is done properly. Because I'm sure your end goal is to make sure that it's done properly too, right? Approved 100%. And that you get a green card, the whole nine. So, definitely do that. So we've got, looks like about 10 minutes here. Do you have any closing remarks, Miriam, or anything else that you want to talk about before we go?
No, I just was so I love this conversation. I love the show, your show. And I honestly didn't realize you had the show on the weekend. So what I will do is make sure that I listen in all the time. But I just want to use this time to thank you for having me. And thank you to all of your listeners and viewers. And, hopefully this was helpful information, at least a starting point to, making sure that you are paying close attention if you're going through the immigration process to your application. It is not just forms. Yes, this is an administrative process. And it, they make it seem like it's like Social Security or something, filling out a form with Social Security. Like technically it's supposed to be, but your consequences are so high. And I think that, people don't realize that. So yeah, if at the very least you call Melaney or me or someone else to say, look, I'm going through this thing. I want a consultation with you to just see what my options are before you get started with anything, then that is a good first step.
Exactly. So tell our listeners how they can reach you.
Sure. So I can be reached at M as in Miriam, Lacroix, law.com, MLACROIXLAW.com. All of my contact information is on there. I have videos of information. Just check out my website and you will find whatever it is that you need. And feel free to reach out to me.
All right. And I know she's on all social media. And you guys, I love her last name, okay? And I butchered it in the beginning, okay?
No, you
I'm
did
not
it.
as fancy, but I love the last name.
Oh, thank you. No, I used to say my last name that way, LaCroix, until my dad sat me down one day. He's like, that is not how you pronounce it. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll fix that.
Like, okay, Dad, I'm sorry. No disrespect to the family.
Right, exactly.
We'll do it right in the future.
Exactly.
Awesome. But yes, and definitely. So Miriam is on all social media, right? You're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok,
yep,
LinkedIn, the whole nine.
Yep, all of it.
All right. And what's your handle on all your social media?
They're all a little different, but I'll tell you for Instagram, it's Lacroix Immigration Law, and then you'll find everything else from there because there's a link in my bio. So you can go to @Lacroix Immigration Law and find me there.
Awesome. Well, I do want to thank you very much for being here with me. I am attorney Melaney LaGrone. I am the same on all social media platforms, and I think it's all the same at LaGrone Law. This social media stuff is just,
I know.
beyond me. But anywho, so you can find me on there. You can find me on my website, lagronelaw.com. And my office, like I said, is in Lawrenceville. So I'm in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and also in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And Miriam is in New York. What city in New York are you in?
White Plains.
White Plains, New York. But you guys remember, of course, because we are immigration lawyers, we can assist you in all the 50 states. So, our local addresses really, don't matter too much. So, and of course, in the age of, alleged post-COVID and, technology and remote work and things like that, we make it very easy for you to be able to hook up with us and for us to work with you from anywhere. So I want to thank everybody. I want to thank all of our listeners. I want to thank Miriam for being here today. And, everyone just go out there and have a fabulous, fabulous weekend. And just watch us on all of the platforms that WCEG Talk Radio is on. So until next time, bye-bye.